me tell you something about Lena Castillo. She had a gift that would make most people jealous and a life that would make most people cry. She could feel what you felt. Not guess, not read your body language like some pop psychology hack. She could actually feel your emotions as physically as a punch to the gut or a kiss on the cheek. They called her kind empaths, a rare mutation in werewolf DNA that turned up maybe once every few generations. If the werewolf world knew what she was, she would be worth more than gold. Governments would want her, corporations would bid on her, dangerous men would cage her. So Lena did what any sensible 25-year-old with a world-breaking secret and a mountain of student debt would do. She made cocktails. The bar was called the Driftwood. It sat below street level in a part of the city that smelled like rain and regret, wedged between a pawn shop and a laundromat that was definitely a front for something. It was a werewolf joint, though you wouldn't know it from the outside. No sign, no bouncer. Just a rusted metal door and a set of stairs going down. Its clientele was a rotating cast of drifters, low-rank wolves who had been kicked out of their packs, omegas scraping by on gig work, the occasional beta with a drinking problem, and the rare alpha slumming it to feel dangerous. For Lena, the bar was both sanctuary and torture chamber. The emotions of 40 drunk werewolves hit her brain every night like a fire hose. Jealousy, horniness, grief, rage, self-pity so thick she could taste it at the back of her throat. By the end of a shift, she usually had a migraine that could fell a horse, but it was better than the alternative. At least these people were honest in their misery. At her graduate program in werewolf psychology at Thornton University, she was surrounded by wolves who smiled with their mouths and screamed with their souls. The dissonance made her physically ill, so she mixed drinks and kept her head down and told no one what she was. She was invisible, she was broke, and on the night this story really begins, she was turning 25 years old, and not a single soul on the planet had remembered. "Happy birthday to me," she whispered to the row of empty shot glasses she was polishing. Her manager, a wiry beta named Doug, threw a wet rag at her from across the bar. "Lena, table 6 has been waiting 10 minutes. You getting paid to talk to glassware? Sorry." Coming. She wasn't sorry, she was drowning. By midnight, the headache was a living thing, pulsing behind her eyes like a second heartbeat. The bar was packed, louder than usual, and some alpha at the pool table was radiating so much sexual frustration that Lena wanted to claw her own skin off. She retreated to the supply closet during her break. Her eyes landed on a bottle of Moonfire, a high-proof werewolf whiskey that cost more per shot than she made in an hour. It was supposed to be locked up. Doug must have forgotten. She didn't pour a glass. She drank from the bottle like it was medicine. Because it was. The first swig burned a line of fire from her tongue to her stomach. The second numbed her fingertips. By the third, the emotional noise of 40 wolves dimmed to a manageable hum. By the fifth, it was nearly silent. For the first time all day, Lena could hear herself think. What she thought was, "I should go home." What she did was stumble back into the bar, swaying slightly, and noticed something she had never noticed before. In the far corner of the Driftwood, there was a booth that no one ever sat in. It was near the emergency exit where a draft of cold air leaked in and the overhead light had been broken for months. Regulars called it the dead seat. Tonight, someone was sitting in the dead seat. He was enormous. That was the first thing. Even sitting down, he dominated the space like a boulder dropped into a creek. He wore a black coat with the collar turned up and a wool cap pulled low over his forehead. He sat perfectly still, both hands wrapped around a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. Every wolf in the bar was pretending he didn't exist. They angled their bodies away from him. They kept their voices low. The pool table, Alpha, who had been swaggering around like he owned the place 5 minutes ago, was hunched over his cue like he was trying to become one with the felt. The stranger was radiating something. Not an emotion, exactly. More like the absence of one. A black hole of psychic energy so dense and cold that it made the air around him feel heavy. Lena's empath senses, even dulled by whiskey, registered it as a wall of pure, suffocating threat. Any sober wolf would have walked the other way. Drunk Lena walked straight toward him. The whiskey had done something interesting to her gift. It had stripped away the surface noise, the static, the chatter, and underneath all that threat, underneath the "I will end you" energy, she felt something else. She stopped at his table. She stared. With her empath senses blurred and softened by alcohol, the terrifying aura peeled back like old paint, and beneath it, she didn't see a monster. She saw a wolf, not literally, metaphorically, spiritually, whatever. The point is, her gift showed her a massive black wolf, scarred and shaking, curled into a tight ball in a dark room, alone. So alone that the loneliness had become a physical wound. The wolf wasn't growling, it was whimpering. It was the saddest thing she had ever felt. Lena's own loneliness, the kind she never talked about, the kind she drowned in work and whiskey and sarcasm, rose up to meet it. Tears blurred her vision. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh, honey." The stranger looked up. Beneath the cap, two steel gray eyes locked onto hers. His face was sharp-jawed and brutally handsome, the kind of face that belonged on a wanted poster or a magazine cover depending on the lighting. A jagged scar cut from his left temple to the corner of his mouth. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted, and dangerous. A low growl vibrated from his chest. Not a sound a human throat should make. Every wolf in the bar flinched. Lena did not flinch. Lena, powered by 5 shots of moonfire and a broken heart, reached out and placed her hand directly on top of his head. The growl stopped. The entire bar stopped. "Why is such a big, scary wolf crying?" She slurred, her voice cracking. The man beneath her hand went rigid. Every muscle in his enormous body locked. Lena, with the confidence of the profoundly inebriated, scratched him gently behind the ear. Right through the wool cap. "You're just a sad little puppy, aren't you?" she cooed, smiling even as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Who's a good puppy?" "It's okay. You can rest now." Something shifted in the air. The oppressive, suffocating aura didn't vanish, but it changed. It contracted. Like a fist slowly unclenching. The stranger exhaled. It was a long, shuddering breath, like a man surfacing after being held underwater for a decade. And Lena, overcome by whiskey and the emotional toll of connecting with another soul's deepest wound, lost her balance. She pitched forward and collapsed face first into the lap of the stranger. She was out cold before her cheek hit his thigh. The stranger didn't move for a very long time. Then slowly, carefully, as though handling something made of glass, he lifted her and laid her down on the bench seat of the booth. He shrugged off his coat and draped it over her. It swallowed her whole. He stood. He was 6'5", built like a weapon, and every eye in the bar was suddenly desperately studying the floor. He looked at the unconscious woman one more time. Then he pulled out his phone, took a photo of the bar's address, and walked out into the night. Nobody in the driftwood breathed for about 30 seconds. Doug, the manager, broke the silence. Who the hell was that? The pool table alpha, whose face was the color of old paper, answered in a whisper. That was Cale Blackheart, CEO of Blackfang Industries, alpha of the Blackfang Pack. They call him the Blood King. Doug looked at the unconscious girl on the bench. She called him Puppy, Doug said flatly. Yeah, we're all gonna die, aren't we? Probably. Narrator's note. They were not in fact all going to die. But Lena's life as she knew it, that was already dead. Lena woke up to the sensation of her brain trying to exit her skull through her left eye socket. She groaned, rolling over on her narrow futon in her studio apartment above a dry cleaner. The room smelled like fabric softener and bad decisions. How did I get home? She muttered. She checked her body. Same clothes from last night, minus her apron. No injuries, no unfamiliar smells. Just the lingering ghost of whiskey and a headache that could be classified as a natural disaster. She remembered the shift. She remembered Doug yelling. She remembered the moonfire. After that, nothing. A black void where memories should be. Panic flickered. She checked her phone. No weird messages, no mysterious charges. Just a text from Doug that said, "You fell asleep at work. Someone carried you to a cab. Don't let it happen again or you're fired." Again. Someone carried me to a cab, she repeated. Cool. Normal. Not terrifying at all. She dragged herself to the shower, and that was when she noticed something strange. Her head was quiet. Not just post-hangover quiet. Actually, genuinely impossibly quiet. The low hum of other people's emotions, the ambient psychic noise she had lived with since puberty, was gone. Not muffled. Gone. Silence for the first time in over a decade. Lena stood under the tepid spray of her shower, water running over her face, and almost cried from the relief of it. Then the noise crept back in. Gradual building, the dry cleaner owner's anxiety, the upstairs neighbor's anger, the distant hum of a city full of feelings. And the moment was over, but she had felt it. True silence. And she wanted it back. She just didn't know what she had done to earn it. She found out 3 days later. She showed up for her shift at the Driftwood and found the door locked. Not with the usual padlock, but with a brand new electronic keypad. Through the window, she could see that the interior had been completely gutted. New tables, new lighting, the broken light over the dead seat, fixed. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stood by the bar, typing on a tablet. He looked like an accountant who could bench press a sedan. "Can I help you?" Lena asked, confused. "Lena Castillo?" The man didn't look up from his tablet. "Yes. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm the new operations manager. This establishment has been acquired by Black Fang Industries. Your employment has been transferred." He finally looked at her, his expression professionally blank. "Mr. Blackheart would like to meet with you regarding a private consulting position. A car is waiting outside." Lena blinked. "I'm sorry, who bought my bar?" "Black Fang Industries. Mr. Cale Blackheart, CEO." The name meant nothing to her. She hadn't heard the pool table alpha's whispered identification. She had been, unconscious. "I don't know who that is," Lena said, "and I don't get into strange cars." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, as though this was a response he had not been briefed on. "Mr. Blackheart anticipated your reluctance. He asked me to relay the following." He glanced at his tablet. Quote, "Tell her I'm the wolf from the dead seat. Tell her I haven't slept since she left. Tell her I'll buy every bar in this city until she agrees to a meeting." End quote. Lena's blood went cold. Fragments of memory flickered. Dark corner. Gray eyes. A growl. Her hand on someone's head. "Oh no. Oh no. What did I do?" she whispered. "You apparently made quite an impression," Marcus said dryly. The car, a black SUV with tinted windows that screamed Villains Transportation, drove her to the Black Fang Industries tower downtown. It was one of those glass and steel monoliths that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated sunlight and loved intimidation. Lena was escorted through a lobby of black marble, past security checkpoints that required retinal scans, and into a private elevator that went up for an uncomfortable number of floors. The doors opened onto a penthouse office that looked like it had been decorated by a very wealthy, very depressed person. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk the size of a small car, no personal photos, no plants. The only color in the entire room was a scratch mark on the wall behind the desk, 4 parallel lines gouged into the concrete. Claw marks. And behind the desk, standing with his back to her, staring out the window at the city below, was the man from the dead seat. He turned. In daylight, without the shadows and the wool cap, he was devastating. Tall, broad, carved from something harder than muscle. His dark hair was pushed back from his face, revealing the full length of that scar. He wore a black dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearms, no tie. He looked like a man who attended board meetings the way other people attended cage fights. His gray eyes locked onto Lena with an intensity that made her feel like she was standing in front of an X-ray machine. "Sit," he said. Not a request, not even a command really. More like a statement of fact about what was going to happen. Lena didn't sit. She crossed her arms. "You bought my bar." "Yes. Why?" "Because you work there. I needed a reason to see you that wouldn't involve my security team surrounding a building." He paused. "I'm told that approach is frowned upon." "Is it?" Apparently, they stared at each other. Lena's empath senses hit her like a truck. She gasped, gripping the back of the nearest chair. His emotional signature was unlike anything she had ever felt. It wasn't the simple colors she usually read. Anger red, sadness blue, fear yellow. His mind was a howling storm, a constant, deafening roar of paranoia, aggression, and pain. It was as if someone had turned the volume on his fight-or-flight response to maximum and broken the dial off. And underneath it, almost drowned out, was the wolf she had seen that night. Still curled up, still whimpering. "You're in pain," she said, before she could stop herself. Kale's jaw tightened. "3 nights ago," he said, ignoring her observation. "You put your hand on my head in a bar. You called me something." He swallowed, and Lena watched his throat work, as though the next words cost him something. The noise in my mind stopped. For the first time in 12 years, it stopped. He took a step toward her. "I need you to do it again." Lena's empath instincts were screaming 2 things simultaneously. 1. This man was genuinely, desperately suffering. 2. This man was more dangerous than anything she had ever encountered. I was drunk, she said carefully. I don't remember what I did. I do, he said. He pulled out his phone and turned it toward her. Security footage. The driftwood, 3 nights ago. Lena watched herself stumble up to the booth, slur something, and put her hand on the head of the most feared alpha in the city. She watched herself scratch behind his ear. She watched herself call him puppy. She watched herself face plant into his lap and pass out. Lena closed her eyes. I would like to die now, please. Cale pocketed the phone. He wasn't smiling, but something in his eyes shifted. A flicker of something that might have been amusement, quickly drowned by desperation. Name your price, he said. Money, housing, protection. Your student loans, yes, I know about those. Whatever you want. You investigated me? I investigate everything. It's why I'm alive. Lena should have been furious. She should have walked out. But her empath senses kept feeding her data she couldn't ignore. This man hadn't slept in days. Weeks, maybe. The psychic noise in his head was so loud that she could feel it bleeding into the air around him. A low-frequency pressure that made her teeth ache. He wasn't manipulating her, he was drowning. And he was offering her everything he had because he had found out that she was the only life raft. What exactly are you asking me to do? She asked. Whatever you did that night. Regular sessions, my penthouse evenings, 2 hours. He paused. I'll draw up a contract. Full NDA. You can leave whenever you want. Lena looked at him. She looked at the claw marks on the wall. She looked at the hollows under his eyes. She thought about the silence she had felt the morning after. The beautiful, perfect silence. She thought about her rent, which was due in 4 days. She thought about the wolf, curled up in the dark, whimpering. I have conditions, she said. Name them. 1. I'm not a pet. I'm not a prisoner. I come and go as I please. Done. 2. You don't track me, surveil me, or investigate me further without my consent. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Done. 3. You tell me what's actually wrong with you. Not the PR version. The truth. Kel was silent for a long time. My inner wolf, he said quietly, woke up when I was 8 years old. My father locked me in a sensory deprivation chamber for 3 months to force the awakening. The wolf woke up, but it never went back to sleep. It has been screaming inside my head for 24 years. He said it flatly, without self-pity, like a man reading a weather report about a hurricane that happened to be located inside his skull. Every specialist, every healer, every drug, he continued, nothing works. My wolf rejects all outside intervention. It sees everything as a threat, except, apparently, you. He met her eyes. I don't know why. I don't care why. I just need it to stop, even if only for an hour. Lena felt her heart crack. Okay, she said, but I'm also going to need the salary in writing and health insurance. This job definitely counts as hazardous work. That was how Lena Castillo, broke graduate student and part-time bartender, became the personal emotional support human for the most terrifying CEO in the city. She told no one. The first session was awkward in a way that made root canals seem comfortable. Lena arrived at Cale's penthouse apartment on the top floor of the Black Fang Tower at 7 p.m. Marcus let her in and then vanished with the practiced efficiency of a man who was paid very well to not ask questions. The apartment was enormous, cold and beautiful, like the inside of a glacier. White walls, dark furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Everything was immaculate, except the bedroom. Lena spotted it through a half-open door. The bed frame was twisted. The headboard had claw marks. The mattress looked like it had been replaced recently, the tags still on. The walls near the bed had been patched and repainted, but she could see the texture differences where old damage had been covered. He destroyed his bedroom regularly, and someone repaired it regularly. A cycle of breaking and mending that had probably been going on for years. Stop looking at that, Cale said from behind her. She jumped. For a man his size, he moved like smoke. Sorry. Professional curiosity. You're not a professional yet, you haven't graduated. I told you to stop investigating me. That was from before. Lena sighed. Where do you want to do this? Cale looked uncomfortable. An expression that sat on his face like a cat on a dog. He gestured vaguely at the living room. Couch. They sat. The couch was Italian leather and probably cost more than her car. Kale sat ramrod straight, his hands on his knees looking like a man waiting for a dentist who was running late. "You're gonna have to relax," Lena said. "I don't relax. Ever?" "No." Lena took a breath. She reached out and placed her hand on his forearm. Even through the fabric of his shirt, the contact was electric. Her empath ability surged. The noise hit her. It was worse than she expected. Kale's inner wolf wasn't just active, it was in a permanent state of siege. Waves of aggression, hypervigilance, and raw terror cycled through his psyche on a loop. The wolf perceived everything as a threat. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, Lena's own heartbeat. No wonder he couldn't sleep. His brain literally could not determine that he was safe. Lena closed her eyes and did what she had never done for anyone before. She pushed calm into him. Not just the surface-level calm she used to soothe bar fights, but deep calm. Safety calm. "You are not alone calm," the wolf resisted. It snarled at her psychic presence, snapping like a cornered animal. Lena didn't back off. She softened. She projected warmth, patience, a quiet that asked nothing and demanded nothing. She felt the wolf hesitate. "It's okay," she murmured, not to Kale, but to the beast inside him. "Nobody's gonna hurt you. You can stop guarding the door." Kale's breathing changed. It slowed. His rigid shoulders dropped half an inch. "More," he said, his voice rough. Lena moved her hand to his head. She ran her fingers through his hair, finding the spot just behind his ear, and scratched. Kale made a sound. It was not a CEO sound. It was not an alpha sound. It was a deep, guttural, vibrating rumble that started in his chest and resonated through the couch cushions. A purr. An honest-to-God purr. "Oh my God," Lena whispered. "Don't stop," Kale growled, Purred, his eyes closing. "Did you just purr?" "No. It was a strategic vocalization. It was a purr. Shut up and keep scratching." Lena kept scratching. Within minutes, the storm in his head had quieted to a light rain. His body lost its tension. His head, which had been upright and rigid, slowly tipped sideways until it was resting against her shoulder. "Call me the thing," he mumbled, half asleep. "What thing?" "Lena, I'm not calling you puppy. I was drunk. I am the CEO of a $7 billion company. I am asking you for one thing." Lena looked down at the most feared man in the city, who was currently nestled against her shoulder like an oversized, emotionally damaged golden retriever. "Good puppy," she said, barely above a whisper. Kale Blackheart let out a long, shuddering exhale and fell asleep. He slept for 6 hours straight. Lena knew this because she couldn't move without risking waking him. And 6 hours is a long time to be pinned to a couch by a 230-pound werewolf alpha who had apparently not experienced REM sleep since the George W. Bush administration. Her left arm went numb. Her bladder staged a protest. A crick developed in her neck that she was fairly sure would require medical attention, but she didn't move, because in sleep, Kale Blackheart was a different person. The hard lines of his face softened. The scar looked less like a threat and more like evidence of survival. His breathing was deep and even, and his inner wolf, the screaming, tortured beast she had spent the evening soothing, was curled up quietly, at peace. He was just tired, she realized. So incredibly tired. When dawnlight crept through the windows, Kale woke with the speed and violence of a man who had trained himself to treat consciousness as a combat state. One second he was asleep, the next he was on his feet, half-shifted, claws out, eyes wild, body positioned between Lena and the window. It took him 4 seconds to recognize where he was. 4 seconds to retract the claws. 4 more to look at. Lena, who was sitting very still on the couch, holding her hands up. "Good morning," she said carefully. He stared at her. She watched the walls go back up. The vulnerability sealed itself away behind concrete and steel. The CEO returned. "You stayed," he said. It wasn't a question. There was something fragile in his voice that he probably didn't know was there. "You were sleeping on my arm. I didn't have a choice." He looked at her arm, then at her. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or gratitude, before he locked it down. "Marcus will drive you home," he said stiffly. Same time tonight, it was Lena's turn to stare. She should set boundaries. She should insist on a schedule, a professional framework, a clear delineation of roles. "Same time," she said, "but I'm bringing a neck pillow, and you're adding a physical therapy stipend to my contract." This was how it went for 3 weeks. Every evening, Lena let herself into the penthouse with the key card Marcus had given her. She sat on the couch. Kale sat beside her, rigid and formal, as though they were about to discuss quarterly earnings. She touched his head, and the pretense crumbled. He melted. There was no other word for it. The iron-spined CEO, the man whose name made grown alphas flinch, dissolved under her fingers like sugar in hot water. He would lean into her touch, close his eyes, and for 2 hours, sometimes 3, sometimes the whole night, the noise stopped, and he was just a man, a sad, exhausted, deeply lonely man. And Lena began to see things she hadn't expected. She noticed the sketchbook on his nightstand. The drawings inside were dark, abstract charcoal storms of black and gray. But as the weeks passed, new drawings appeared. Lighter ones. One, she noticed with a start, looked like a pair of hands. Her hands. She noticed that her favorite tea, a very specific jasmine oolong she had mentioned exactly once, appeared in his kitchen. Then her favorite crackers. Then a blanket that was precisely the right weight, soft enough for her, heavy enough to feel safe. Never mentioned these things, they just appeared. She noticed that he started asking her questions during their sessions. Small ones at first. What's your thesis about? Why psychology? Then bigger ones. Why do you hide what you are? Who taught you to be ashamed of it? And she answered, because it was hard to maintain walls with someone whose walls she was actively dismantling. She told him about her father, Dr. Martin Castillo, a beta academic who had written a paper arguing that the alpha hierarchy was psychologically destructive and should be reformed. The paper went viral, the old guard destroyed him, branded him a traitor to pack law, his university fired him, his pack expelled him, he spiraled into depression, and took his own life when Lena was 9. She told Cale this on a Thursday evening, her fingers in his hair, her voice steady, her heart not steady at all. Cale was quiet for a long time. Your father wasn't a traitor, he said. He was right. The hierarchy is destructive. She looked down at him. You run the hierarchy. I know, he said. And I'm the most destroyed person in it. On another night, he told her about the chamber. About being 8 years old. About the dark. About screaming until his voice gave out and no one coming. About the wolf exploding awake inside him like a bomb detonating, and never ever going quiet again. He told her this with his head in her lap, staring at the ceiling, his voice flat and distant. Lena cried. He didn't. You're crying for me? He said, sounding genuinely confused. You're not going to? She sniffled. I haven't cried since I was 8. That's not a flex, Cale, that's a symptom. He looked up at her, and she saw it again. The wolf inside him watching her through his eyes. Not growling, not guarding, just watching with something that looked terrifyingly like hope. You are not invisible to me, Lena, he said. You are the only thing I see. And that was the moment Lena realized she was in trouble. Because she wasn't just helping him anymore, she was falling for him. And falling for a man whose brain was a war zone was either the bravest or the stupidest thing she had ever done. She suspected it was both. The cracks appeared in week 4. Not between them. Around them. Lena started noticing things at the Black Fang Tower. The way certain executives watched her when she arrived for her evening sessions. The way conversations stopped when she walked past. The way Marcus, ever professional, started escorting her through different entrances each night, varying the route. Someone's watching me, Lena said to Cale one evening. Everyone is watching you, Cale replied. I announced nothing, but they can smell you on me. My scent has changed. They know something is different. Different how? I am making better decisions. I am sleeping. I have not destroyed a conference room in 3 weeks. He paused. This is concerning to certain people who benefit from my instability. Who? He didn't answer immediately. Then, Victoria Hale. Lena knew the name. Everyone in the werewolf world knew the name. Victoria Hale was the vice president of Black Fang Industries, heiress to the Hale Pack fortune, and the woman who had been publicly positioned as Cale's eventual mate in a corporate merger/arranged marriage that both families had been negotiating for years. She was brilliant, ruthless, and, according to every society page in the werewolf press, stunningly beautiful. Lena had never met her. That changed on a Tuesday. Lena was in the penthouse kitchen, making tea, waiting for Cale to finish a late meeting, when the elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out. She was tall, blonde, immaculate. She wore a white silk blouse and charcoal trousers that cost more than Lena's semester tuition. Her heels clicked on the marble floor with the precision of a metronome. Her face was beautiful in the way that polished weapons are beautiful, all clean lines and sharp edges. Her eyes found Lena and performed a full-body assessment in approximately 2 seconds. So, Victoria said, her voice cool and melodic and carrying the faintest edge of a blade. This is the project. Lena set down the kettle. Excuse me? Victoria circled the kitchen island, trailing one manicured finger along the marble. Don't be offended, darling. That's what the board calls you. Kale's little wellness project. She picked up Lena's tea mug, sniffed it, and set it back down with a look of mild distaste. Jasmine? How quaint. Lena's empath senses read Victoria in an instant. The woman's emotional signature was controlled, layered, and ice cold. Beneath the polish was ambition sharp enough to draw blood, and underneath the ambition was something unexpected. Fear. Victoria Hale was afraid, not of Lena, of Kale, of what Kale might become if he wasn't broken anymore. I see what you're doing here, Victoria continued, leaning against the counter. You soothe him. You make the beast lie down. It's very sweet. She smiled, showing teeth. But I want you to understand something. She leaned close enough that Lena could smell her perfume. Something expensive, floral, predatory. Kale Blackheart is not a man you fix. He is a machine that runs on pain. Remove the pain and the machine doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, people like me have to step in. Is that a threat? Lena asked. It's economics, darling. Victoria straightened. The Hale-Blackfang merger depends on Kale being manageable. Sick Kale needs a partner. Healthy Kale needs no one. She paused at the elevator. You think you're helping him, but all you're doing is making yourself obsolete. The doors closed. Lena stood in the kitchen, her tea going cold, and felt the first real chill of understanding. She wasn't just dealing with a broken man. She was standing in the middle of a corporate power struggle, and she had just been identified as a threat. She should have told Kale. She almost did. But Victoria's words had planted a seed of doubt that her empath abilities couldn't quite uproot. You think you're helping him, but all you're doing is making yourself obsolete. Was she helping him? Or was she just creating a dependency? A new drug to replace the old ones. She started pulling back. She kept her sessions shorter. She maintained more physical distance. She suggested, gently professionally, that Kale should explore other treatment options. Group therapy, meditation, exposure therapy for the wolf, things that didn't require her specifically. Kale noticed immediately. He didn't say anything at first, but Lena felt his inner wolf growing agitated. It paced, it whined, it started growling at shadows again. On Friday, she found a tracking device in her jacket pocket. She held it up between two fingers like a dead roach. Kale. He didn't deny it. You changed your route home. I needed to know you were safe. You promised no surveillance. I lied. Lena exploded. This, she snapped, throwing the tracker on his coffee table, is exactly what I was afraid of. You don't want a therapist. You want a security blanket you can microchip. I am not your property, Kale. I am not your anchor or your medicine or whatever word you use to make this okay in your head. I am a person, and you are suffocating me. The words hit him like physical blows. She watched each one land, saw his jaw clench, his hands fist, his inner wolf rear up in defensive fury. But he didn't roar, he didn't grab her, he didn't unleash the beast. He stepped back. Then leave, he said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. What? The door's right there, Lena. I won't stop you. She stared at him. His face was a mask, but his eyes were screaming. She should stay, she should talk it out, she should be the professional. She picked up her jacket and left. It was the hardest walk of her life. Not because she was afraid, because, with every step she took away from his door, the silence in her own head, the peace that proximity to him had started to give her, began to fracture. She hadn't told him that part, that he was her anchor too, that his presence, the sheer density of his emotional signature, had been shielding her from the noise of the city like a wall of psychic Kevlar. Without him, the world got loud again. She made it to the elevator before the migraine hit. She made it to the lobby before the tears started. She made it home before she admitted that she wasn't just falling for him. She'd already fallen. 3 days. Kale gave her 3 days. He didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't send Marcus or a tracker or a drone or any of the other surveillance methods he definitely had access to. He just waited. Lena spent those 3 days in her apartment, hammered by the emotional noise of the city, unable to sleep, unable to focus, unable to stop thinking about a man with gray eyes and a scar and a wolf that had, against all logic, trusted her. She missed him. Not the money, not the fancy apartment, Not even the silence. Him. The way he said her name. The way he drew pictures of her hands. The way he asked her questions as if her answers were the most important data he would ever collect. The way he purred, which he absolutely still denied doing. On the morning of the 4th day, she went back. Marcus opened the penthouse door. He looked relieved. The apartment was a disaster. Not claw marks this time. Kale had paced a visible track into the hardwood floor. The kitchen was full of cold, untouched takeout containers. The bedroom door was closed, and behind it, she could hear nothing. He was sitting on the floor of his bedroom, back against the wall, in the dark. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. His inner wolf was screaming so loud that Lena felt it from the hallway, but he had not come after her. He had done the hardest thing anyone had ever asked him to do. He had let her go. "You came back," he said without looking up. "I came back," she confirmed. She sat down next to him on the floor. Their shoulders touched. The noise in both their heads quieted to a murmur. "I removed the tracking software," he said. "All of it. I can show you the logs. I believe you. I also may have accidentally intimidated your landlord into fixing your hot water. That was before the promise. I noticed. Thank you." They sat in the dark. "Kale," Lena said, "I need you to understand something. This works because I choose it. The minute it becomes a cage, it stops working. For both of us." "I understand," he said. And then, quietly, "I'm sorry." 2 words. But for a man who had never apologized for anything in his adult life, they weighed as much as a cathedral. Lena reached over and took his hand. He flinched, then gripped it like a lifeline. "Also," she said, "Victoria came to see me." The air temperature dropped about 10 degrees. "What did she say?" "That I'm making you too healthy and it's bad for business." Kale was silent for a long moment. Then he said, in a voice that made Lena very glad she was not Victoria Hale, "I see." This was the part where everything went to hell. First, the good part. For 2 more months, Kale and Lena found a rhythm. She came every evening, not as an employee anymore, but as something they didn't have a word for yet. She helped him sleep. He helped her breathe. She pushed him to see a proper therapist in addition to their sessions, a grizzled old wolf named Dr. Corbin who specialized in traumatic wolf awakenings. Kale hated him, but he went. He started drawing lighter pictures. He pruned a rose bush on the building's rooftop garden because Lena mentioned she liked roses. He nearly bled to death because it turned out he approached gardening with the same intensity he approached hostile takeovers. She taught him how to waltz. He taught her how to identify 17 different types of corporate fraud. They were, against all odds, happy. This was intolerable to Victoria Hale. Victoria had spent the better part of 5 years carefully, methodically weakening Kale's position. She controlled his medical team. She had been gradually reducing the dosage of his wolf suppressant medication for over a year, ensuring his public episodes of instability grew worse, feeding the board's narrative that he was unfit to lead. The Hale-Blackfang merger wasn't a marriage, it was a takeover. And the key to the takeover was Kale being too broken to fight it. Now Lena was fixing the machine Victoria needed broken. Victoria didn't panic. She strategized. She hired a private investigator. She found everything. The invitation arrived on a Wednesday. It was a thick cream envelope with the Blackfang corporate seal, hand-delivered by a courier. Inside was an invitation to the Blackfang annual gala, a charity event that functioned as the Werewolf Elite's version of the Met Ball. Power, politics, and predatory behavior, all dressed in designer formal wear. "I hate these things," Kale said, staring at the invitation like it was a bomb. Lena picked it up. "When is it?" "Saturday. Victoria organizes it every year. It's designed to make me miserable. The noise of 500 wolves in one room is..." He paused. "Unpleasant. So don't go. If I don't go, she wins. The board sees weakness." He looked at Lena. "But the noise will be bad." "Then bring your neck pillow," Lena said, smiling. "And me." Kale stared at her. She watched the war play out behind his eyes. Bringing her meant publicly acknowledging her existence. It meant putting a target on her back. It meant telling the entire werewolf world that the Blood King had someone he cared about. It meant giving his enemies a weapon. "If the noise gets too loud," Lena said, reading his hesitation, "I'll scratch behind your ear." "The left one?" "I know that's the good one." "If you do that in public," Kale said slowly, "I may propose to you on the spot just to establish legal precedent." "That's not how proposals work. I'm a CEO, everything is a legal precedent." The dress arrived Friday. It wasn't pastel, it wasn't modest, it was red. a deep, arterial crimson that looked like it had been poured rather than sewn. It came in a black velvet box with a single note in Cale's handwriting, which was surprisingly elegant for a man who regularly destroyed furniture. "You are not a target. You are a warning." Lena put it on and looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. The woman staring back looked fierce, untouchable, like someone who had clawed her way out of the bottom and wasn't going back. When she stepped out into the penthouse living room, Cale was waiting. Black suit, black shirt, no tie. He looked like he'd been carved from the same dark stone as his tower. He turned. He stopped. His eyes traveled from her face to her shoulders, to the way the dress moved, and back to her face. And Lena felt his emotional signature do something it had never done before. It went completely, perfectly still, not the tortured stillness of suppression. The breathless stillness of awe. "You," he said, and didn't finish the sentence. "Is it too much?" She fidgeted. "I feel like a fire truck." He crossed the room. He didn't touch her, but he leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. "If anyone looks at you for longer than 3 seconds tonight," he murmured, "I am going to acquire their company and liquidate their assets. That is wildly disproportionate. I am a wildly disproportionate person." He offered his arm. "Stay close. If I lose you in the crowd, I will set off the fire alarm to clear the building." That seems reasonable. It was not reasonable. But they went. The gala was held in the grand atrium of the Blackfang Tower, a cavernous space of glass and steel that had been transformed into something out of a dark fairy tale. Black orchids, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing something moody. 500 of the most powerful wolves in the country, dressed in silk and ambition, drinking champagne and lying to each other. Lena's empath senses nearly buckled. The emotional noise of 500 wolves in close quarters was staggering. Greed, envy, lust, fear, calculation, every flavor of human ugliness amplified by predatory instinct. Lena gripped Cale's arm and felt the room tilt. Cale noticed instantly. He turned, blocking the crowd's view of her with his body. "Focus on me," he said, his voice low. "It's so loud," she whispered. He took her hand and pressed it flat against his chest, over his heart. "Listen to this," he said. "My wolf is quiet because you're here. If I can be quiet for you, you can be strong for me." Under her palm, his heartbeat was slow, steady, calm. A rhythm she had tamed. She breathed. The room stabilized. "Okay," she said. "I'm okay. Then let's give them something to talk about." They danced. Cale didn't know how to waltz properly despite Lena's lessons. He prowled. But he let her lead, which was somehow the most intimate act of trust she had ever witnessed. His massive hands were gentle on her waist. His eyes never left hers. They were the only ones on the floor. 500 wolves watched in silence. The monster was dancing. "They're staring," Cale said. "Let them stare." She reached up, hidden by the high collar of his jacket, and scratched the nape of his neck. Just lightly, just enough. His eyes fluttered shut for a fraction of a second. A shiver ran through him. "You're playing a dangerous game," he murmured, provoking a wolf in public. "I'm not afraid of the wolf anymore," she whispered back. Cale stopped dancing. He looked down at her, his expression open and intense and raw, and said, loudly enough for the entire silent room to hear, "This woman is my anchor. Let it be known, her enemies are mine. Anyone who threatens her will answer to me personally, and I do not answer politely." In werewolf culture, an anchor declaration was rarer than a mating bond. It meant, this person holds my sanity. This person is sacred. The room erupted in murmurs. At the edge of the dance floor, Victoria Hale stood, holding a champagne flute. Her knuckles were white. The crystal stem cracked in her grip. "It's time," she whispered to the man standing behind her. The slow, deliberate sound of a single person clapping cut through the ballroom. Victoria Hale glided onto the dance floor, followed by a server carrying a silver tray with 3 crystal glasses. "Touching," Victoria said, her voice carrying with practiced theatrical precision. "Truly touching." The beast and his emotional support bartender. Cale stepped in front of Lena. His inner wolf bristled. "Leave, Victoria." "Oh, but I come bearing gifts." Victoria picked up a glass, a toast, to the king's anchor. She turned to Lena, her eyes glittering, and to her colorful family history. She paused, savoring the moment. "Tell me, darling, does Cale know who your father was?" The room went quiet. "Or should I say," Victoria continued, Does he know that his beloved anchor is the daughter of Dr. Martin Castillo? The man who tried to dismantle the very hierarchy that puts Kale on his throne? Lena felt the blood drain from her face. But Victoria wasn't finished. She held up a phone, projected onto the large screen behind the stage. Fabricated documents, falsified communications. Screenshots supposedly showing that Lena had been in contact with anti-hierarchy activist groups, that her closeness to Kale was part of a long-planned infiltration strategy to destabilize Black Fang from the inside. She didn't just come to fix you, Kale, Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. She came to finish her father's work. Kale turned to Lena. His inner wolf was thrashing. The noise, held at bay all evening, was surging back. She could feel it. Is it true? He asked. About your father? He was a professor. Lena's voice shook. He wrote a paper. That's all. He wasn't a traitor. And I'm not a spy. Kale, please, you know me. But the doubt was already in his eyes. Not because he believed Victoria, but because his wolf, his damaged, paranoid, ever-vigilant wolf, was screaming. She lied. She hid something. Threat. 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 And then the drug hit. Victoria hadn't put it in the champagne. She had put it in something far more insidious. The ventilation system. A targeted aerosol of concentrated wolf catalyst designed to interact with the already reduced suppressants in Kale's system. It hit his bloodstream through his lungs. Kale staggered. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Kale! Lena reached for him. He roared! It was the sound that had earned him his nickname. Not human, not wolf, something in between. A sound of pure agony. He fell to his knees, clawing at his own head. The wolf was erupting, tearing through every wall Lena had helped him build over the past 3 months. The noise, he screamed. Make it stop! Make it stop! Lena dropped to her knees beside him. She grabbed his face, trying to push calm into him, but his wolf was rejecting her. The catalyst had turned his inner beast into a hurricane of paranoia, and in that hurricane, her touch felt like an attack. He shoved her away. The force sent her sliding across the polished floor, crashing into a table. Glasses shattered. People screamed. Kale looked at her. His pupils were blown black. He didn't see Lena. He saw a traitor, a liar, the daughter of the man who wanted to destroy everything. She did this! Victoria cried, pointing at Lena with manufactured horror. The traitor's daughter poisoned him. I saw her! No! Lena scrambled to her feet, blood trickling from a cut on her arm. Kale, it's me! It's me! Please! He stood. He was half-shifted, claws out, eyes void of recognition. The 500 wolves in the ballroom pressed against the walls, terrified. Lena tried one last time. She took a step toward him. Puppy? She whispered. It's me. You? He snarled, the word dripping with betrayal that wasn't his own. You tricked me. He raised his hand, claws extended. Lena didn't move. She looked at him through her tears and felt her heart break. Not for herself. For the wolf inside him who was being tortured by a poison he couldn't smell and a lie he couldn't see through. I love you, she said. His claws hovered in the air. His arms shook. Somewhere deep inside the hurricane, the wolf hesitated. He couldn't kill her, but he couldn't be near her. Get her out! He roared, the sound tearing his throat raw. Terminate her contract. Freeze her accounts. Delete her access. He looked at Lena one last time, and the words that came out were the cruelest he had ever spoken, because they were the only ones the poison would let him say. You are your father's daughter, he said. And I was a fool to let you close. Security took Lena by the arms. She was marched out of the ballroom, down the elevator, through the lobby, and deposited on the rain-soaked sidewalk. No coat, no phone, no money, no job. No home because the apartment she had been staying in was Black Fang property. The rain soaked through the red dress, the heartbeat dress, the dress he had chosen because he thought she looked like a warning. Now she just looked like a casualty. She stood on the sidewalk for a long time, rain running down her face, indistinguishable from tears. Then she squared her shoulders, kicked off her heels, and started walking barefoot toward the only part of the city that had ever felt like home. The lower boroughs, the werewolf slums. She was going back to the wolves, who had nothing, because apparently she was one of them again. The lower boroughs smelled like wet concrete and survival. It was a neighborhood the rest of the city pretended didn't exist. A sprawl of converted warehouses and crumbling apartments where the packless wolves lived. Omegas, rogues, wolves who had been expelled, abandoned, or simply forgotten. Lena knew these streets. She had served these people drinks for 3 years. She had felt their pain, their hunger, their stubborn refusal to die. She showed up at the Driftwood, which still existed as a bar, just under new management. Marcus had kept it running, apparently as some kind of contingency plan. The door was open. Inside, she found a collection of familiar faces. Wolves she had served, soothed, listened to. They looked at her, standing in the doorway in a ruined red dress with no shoes, and didn't ask a single question. A gaunt man named Eli, a former rogue she had once calmed down during a panic attack by projecting the feeling of a full stomach into his starving mind, stood up from his bar stool. "You look like hell," he said. "I've had a night." He pulled out a chair. She sat. For the next month, Lena didn't try to rebuild her old life. She built a new one. She used her empath abilities openly for the first time. She helped rogues process their trauma. She mediated disputes. She calmed feral episodes in wolves who hadn't been able to afford suppressants. She held group sessions in the back room of the Driftwood, teaching coping techniques she had learned in her graduate program, techniques she had refined on the most powerful alpha in the city. She wasn't leading through power, she was leading through understanding. The Packless wolves didn't call her Alpha, they called her Doc. But every night, alone in the small room above the bar, she pressed her hand against her chest and felt the thin, aching thread that still connected her to Kale. He was getting worse. She could feel it faintly, distantly, like hearing someone scream through several walls. She tried not to care. She failed. She was stitching a cut on Eli's arm one evening when a young wolf burst into the bar. "Doc," he panted. "News from Uptown." Lena's hands stilled. The Blood King's lost it. Full feral. He hasn't left the tower in 2 weeks. Victoria Hale has convened the board. She's moving for a vote of no confidence and pushing through the merger with Northridge Capital. The kid's eyes were wide. If Northridge takes over, they're gonna bulldoze the lower boroughs. The whole district, they've already filed the permits. Lena set down the needle. The thread in her chest pulled tight. This wasn't just about Kale anymore. If Victoria and Northridge won, every wolf in this room, every wolf she had spent the past month helping, would lose their homes. "I'm going back," she said. The room went quiet. Eli looked at her. "To the tower?" "To get my puppy back." "Lena, he kicked you out. He nearly killed you. He was drugged, he was manipulated, and he's being murdered by inches right now." Lena looked around the room at the faces of wolves who had been thrown away by every power structure that existed. "I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to help me get inside. There are maintenance tunnels under the Black Fang Tower that connect to the old subway system. I just need a path." Eli stared at her. The other wolves exchanged glances. "You're insane," Eli said. "Probably. But I'm also the only one who can reach him. And if I don't, you all lose everything." Silence. Then Eli stood up. "I know the tunnels." One by one, the others stood. Lena looked at them. Her ragtag pack of 20 broken wolves who had nothing to offer except loyalty and knowledge of the city's forgotten underground. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank us yet," Eli muttered. "We still have to get past the most advanced security system in the city." "I once calmed a feral alpha with a head scratch," Lena said. "How hard can corporate security be?" It was very hard. The Black Fang Tower at 2 a.m. was a fortress. Security cameras on every corner, electronic locks on every door, a private army of hired wolves patrolling the perimeter. But the maintenance tunnels were old, pre-digital, the kind of infrastructure that billion-dollar companies forgot about because it wasn't worth renovating. Eli led Lena through a maze of rusted pipes and damp concrete 4 stories below street level. They emerged in the tower's sub-basement next to a boiler the size of a school bus. "From here, you're on your own," Eli said. "The elevator shaft has maintenance rungs, goes all the way up." Lena looked up the shaft. It was very tall and very dark. "Great," she said. "Cardio." She climbed 47 floors, her arms screaming, her legs shaking, the red dress, what was left of it, torn and filthy. She reached the penthouse level. The maintenance panel opened into a utility closet. She squeezed through, bruising her hip, and stepped into the hallway. It was destroyed. The elegant hallway she remembered was unrecognizable. Claw marks covered every surface. Light fixtures hung from shredded wires. The artwork, those expensive abstract pieces, had been torn from the walls. She followed the destruction to the bedroom door. It was locked, but the lock was mangled, half torn from the frame by claws that had apparently tried to get out and then changed their mind about leaving. She pushed it open. The room was dark. The windows, floor-to-ceiling glass that should have shown the city's skyline, were covered with what appeared to be shredded curtains taped to the glass. The bed was destroyed. The floor was littered with broken furniture, and in the corner, in the darkest part of the room, was a shape. He was half-shifted, more wolf than man. His shirt was torn. His claws were out, scarring the hardwood floor where he sat. His eyes, when they opened, were completely black. No gray, no recognition. Just the wolf, alone in the dark, screaming inside a prison of his own mind. He sensed her. He lunged. Lena didn't run. She had thought about this moment for a month. She had prepared. She had rehearsed. She had told herself she would be calm, clinical, professional. She was none of those things. She was terrified and heartbroken and furious. At Victoria, at the world, at the disease that had stolen the man she loved, and she channeled every single ounce of it into her gift. She didn't just project calm, she projected everything. Her fear, her anger, you hurt me, her loneliness, I missed you every single day, her grief, I watched you choose the poison over me, and it nearly killed us both. And underneath it all, so bright it burned, her love. I love you. I love the wolf. I love the man. I love the disaster. All of it. Every broken, snarling, puppy-purring piece of you. Cale stopped. His claws were an inch from her throat. His breath was hot and smelled of blood where he had bitten his own lip. His whole body vibrated with the need to destroy, but the wolf felt her. The wolf recognized her, not as a threat, not as medicine, as home. Lena reached up with a shaking, dirty hand and placed it on top of his head. His hair was matted, he was trembling. "Hey," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "There's my puppy." She scratched behind his left ear. The sound that came out of Cale Blackheart was not a roar, not a growl, not a purr. It was a sob. A raw, broken, human sound that had been locked behind walls for 24 years. The black bled from his eyes. Gray returned. He looked at her, and this time he saw her. "Lena!" He choked. His legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, pulling her against him, burying his face in her stomach. The blood king of the corporate werewolf world cried in a dark room, holding a woman in a shredded red dress. And the wolf inside him, for the first time in his life, lay down and was still. Not asleep? Not suppressed? At peace. It was so loud, he gasped between sobs. "You were gone. And it was so loud, and I couldn't remember why I sent you away. And then I remembered, and it was worse, because I chose the noise over you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." "I know," Lena whispered, holding him, her fingers in his hair. "I know, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." She tilted his face up, cupping his scarred jaw in her hands. "Down, puppy," he shattered, but this time, when the pieces fell, someone was there to hold them. What happened next took 7 hours and involved significantly less crying. Cale slept. Really slept. Head in her lap, on the floor because the bed was destroyed. Lena sat there, legs cramping, running her fingers through his hair, and planned. When he woke, he was different. Not healed, not fixed, but present. His inner wolf was calm, and not in the tense way of chemical suppression, but in the exhausted, grateful way of an animal that had finally been allowed to rest. "Victoria tampered with your medication," Lena told him. "She's been reducing your suppressants for over a year. The gala was a setup. The documents about my father were fabricated. She's been engineering your breakdown so the board would approve the Northridge merger." She told him everything. He listened, his gray eyes sharp and clear for the first time in weeks. "The board vote is today?" he asked. "In 3 hours. And the lower boroughs? Demolished? If the merger goes through, Northridge bulldozes the entire district. 4,000 wolves lose their homes." Cale stood up. He was still shirtless, still scarred, still terrifying, but the madness was gone. In its place was something far more dangerous. Clarity. "I need a suit," he said. "You need a shower," Lena corrected. He looked down at himself. Fair. 40 minutes later, Cale Blackheart walked into the Black Fang Industries boardroom like a resurrection. He wore a clean black suit that Marcus had somehow produced in 20 minutes. His hair was pushed back, his scar was visible, his eyes were clear, focused, and absolutely lethal. Victoria Hale stood at the head of the table, mid-presentation, a slide behind her reading, Vote of no confidence. Motion to transfer executive authority. She looked up. The color drained from her face. Good morning, Cale said, taking his seat at the head of the table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The sheer weight of his alpha presence, undiluted by madness for the first time in years, pressed down on the room like gravity. The board members sat frozen. I understand there's a vote, Cale continued conversationally. Before we proceed, I'd like to enter some evidence into the record. Marcus, standing by the door, pressed a button on a remote. The screen behind Victoria changed. Medical records showing the systematic reduction of Cale's suppressant dosage over 14 months. Security footage of Victoria's team accessing his medication. Financial records of secret communications between Victoria Hale and Northridge Capital, predating Cale's breakdown by 2 years. Audio recordings of Victoria discussing the gala sabotage. The room was silent. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. Cale looked at her. You didn't plan for me to wake up, he said simply. That was your mistake. He turned to the board. The motion is withdrawn. Miss Hale's position is terminated effective immediately. Her pack affiliation with Black Fang is revoked. In the werewolf world, losing your pack affiliation was worse than bankruptcy. It meant losing your identity, your protection, your place in the hierarchy. Victoria lunged for the table. You can't. The merger, Northridge, Cale interrupted, will receive a very polite letter informing them that Black Fang is no longer for sale, and that any further interest in the lower boroughs will be treated as a hostile act. He stood. This meeting is adjourned. He walked out. Victoria Hale stood in the empty boardroom, surrounded by the wreckage of a 5-year plan, and screamed. Nobody came. That evening, Cale found Lena on the rooftop garden. She was sitting on the concrete ledge, her feet dangling over the city, still wearing the remnants of the ruined red dress because she literally owned nothing else anymore. The wind whipped her hair. The city lights spread out below her like a circuit board. Cale sat beside her. He held something behind his back. I brought you a gift, he said. Lena eyed him. If it's a tracking device, I'm pushing you off this roof. It's not a tracking device. He revealed his hand. He was holding a potted plant. A small, scraggly, stubbornly alive dandelion, roots and dirt and all, dug up from a crack in the rooftop concrete. It survived, he said, with the gravity of a man delivering a keynote speech. Like you. Lena looked at the weed. She looked at the man. She looked at the city. She laughed. A real, full-body, uncontrollable laugh that came from somewhere deep and warm. You're ridiculous, she said, taking the plant. Cale's chest expanded. He looked prouder of that dandelion than of his $7 billion company. I'll get you more, he said seriously. I will acquire an entire greenhouse if necessary. One is perfect, she said. She set the plant down carefully and then grabbed his face in both hands. Listen to me, she said. I am not going to fix you. You are going to fix yourself with help. With Dr. Corbin and proper medication and therapy and time. And I'm going to be right here. Not as your medicine, but as your partner. Because you are also my anchor. You enormous disaster of a human being. The world gets loud for me too. And you make it quiet. Cale stared at her. I make it quiet? He repeated. Your alpha aura. It's like a psychic wall. When I'm near you, I can't feel anyone else. Just you. She shrugged. You're basically noise-canceling headphones in human form. Cale processed this. You're telling me that my terrifying murderous energy is good for something? It helps me sleep. This is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Your bar is very low. My bar is underground. She kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a kiss between two people who had nearly lost each other to poison and pride and fear, and who had decided mutually and simultaneously that they would rather fight the world together than be safe apart. When they pulled apart, Cale rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said. Not as a command, as a question. Please. I already am. And will you? He asked with extreme seriousness. Still call me puppy? In private, she said. Only in private. And scratch behind the ear? Cale, the left one is the good one. I know which one is the good one. He smiled. A real smile. The kind that transformed his face from a threat into something breathtaking. Good girl, he said. She scratched behind his ear. He purred. He still denied it. 6 months later, Cale Blackheart sat in the rooftop garden, glaring at a rosebush as if it owed him money. He held a pair of gardening shears in his massive hands. handling them with the same precision and care with which he handled a hostile acquisition, which is to say, violently. "It's just pruning, Kale," Lena called from a nearby lounge chair. She was reading a psychology journal, barefoot, in a yellow sundress, looking like the human embodiment of serotonin. "It has thorns," Kale said, snipping a branch with unnecessary aggression. The thorn drew blood. He glared at the bush. "I should acquire the garden supply company and have them breed thornless varieties. If you kill my roses, you sleep on the couch." Kale froze. The CEO of a $7 billion company, the man whose name made grown wolves stammer, looked genuinely terrified. "I will negotiate with the bush," he said. A lot had changed. The Black Fang Tower wasn't dark anymore. Lena had done to it what she'd done to Kale, brought in light, warmth, and an alarming number of potted plants. The lower boroughs had been officially designated as a protected district under Black Fang's charter. Lena had opened a clinic there, the first werewolf mental health center in the city, specializing in trauma, feral episodes, and wolf integration therapy. She ran it 3 days a week. She had also finally finished her thesis. Her defense committee had unanimously approved it, though one professor noted that using your CEO werewolf boyfriend as a primary case study was ethically questionable. Kale still saw Dr. Corbin twice a week. He still had bad days. He still checked the locks 3 times at night. He still growled at anyone who stood too close to Lena at public events. But the wolf was quiet. Not silent. Exactly. It was there, always there. A presence in the back of his mind. But it wasn't screaming anymore. It was resting. For the first time in 24 years, the wolf and the man existed in the same body without war. He walked over to the lounge chair and flopped down, resting his head in Lena's lap. She put down the journal. Her fingers found the spot behind his left ear. "Noise is loud today," he murmured. "I know." She scratched gently. "But you didn't kill the rosebush." "I wanted to." "I know, you're very brave." He sighed, content. He didn't care that the rooftop security camera was recording. He didn't care that Marcus was pretending not to watch from the doorway. He was home. 3 more months after that, Kale was pacing again. Not the frantic, wall-destroying pacing of the old days. This was a very specific, very targeted kind of panic. Lena had fainted during a board meeting. Kale had nearly flipped the conference table. He had carried her to the medical suite himself, which involved walking through the entire executive floor, holding an unconscious woman, which was, according to HR, not ideal optics. Now the doctor, an elderly beta woman who had known Kale since he was a boy and was the only person on the planet who was not afraid of him, stepped out of the exam room. "Well, Kale's claws were out. Is it poison? Is it Victoria? Because I will find her. I don't care that she's in another country. I will." "Put your claws away," the doctor said, smiling. "You can't fight biology." Lena called from the exam room. "Kale, come here." He was at her side instantly, dropping to his knees beside the exam table. "Tell me," he said. "I'll fix it. Whatever it is." Lena took his large, scarred hand and placed it on her stomach. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. The happy kind. "You can't fix this one, puppy, but you're gonna have to protect it." Kale went still. He looked at his hand, he looked at her stomach, he looked at her eyes. "A pup?" he whispered. "A pup?" she confirmed. The color drained from his face. He pulled his hand away as if he had touched fire. "No, Lena. My blood. My wolf. The madness. What if it passes on? What if our child is what if he is like you?" Lena finished. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Then our child will have something you never had. A mother who understands how the mind works, a father who would tear apart the world to keep them safe, and a Dr. Corbin who is very patient and charges by the hour." She smiled. "Besides, if the baby gets fussy, I'll just scratch behind their ears." Kale let out a long, shuddering breath. He pressed his forehead against her stomach. When he spoke, his voice was thick. "I will protect you," he whispered. "Both of you. I will be the shield." Lena ran her fingers through his hair, the spot behind his left ear. "I know you will, puppy." And the wolf, the scarred and weary wolf that had spent 24 years screaming in the dark, curled up one more time. Not in pain, not in loneliness, in peace. Lena looked down at the man she loved, the disaster, the CEO, the puppy, and felt the silence settle around them like a blanket. The noise was gone for both of them, and it wasn't coming back. If you felt that satisfying chill run down your spine, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Trust me, the next one is even wilder. See you there.